To be fair, we did ask for this. Hey everyone, thanks for tuning back into QuickBird Gaming. I am Jonathan and I appreciate you tuning in for this week's gaming news wrap up. We're going to be covering the 12th through the 18th of July, and there have been a few things in the gaming world that have happened. I'm going to try and discuss them all. As always, every story I do discuss is time-stamped in the description box, so feel free to scroll down and jump to a story that interests you. Before we get to most of the news, though, we're going to talk about the big one, and that's the bombs that Bethesda dropped on Friday, so let's get into it. Okay, so Bethesda dropped a whole lot of news on Friday, on the 17th of July, and we'll kind of go through these one at a time. I want to start with this article from Video Games Chronicle. Bethesda confirms Obsidian Fallout game and that Fallout 5 is in pre-production. Remasters of Fallout 3 and New Vegas are also on the way. We'll come back to that in just a second. Okay, in a lengthy note published on Friday, the studio revealed what's planned for its biggest games. They said we have multiple projects in active development. A new Fallout 76 expansion was confirmed, which will serve as a prequel to Fallout 3. I believe it's called Raven Rock, which was important location in Fallout 3. Okay, and they talked about the remasters. Bethesda Game Studio also confirmed there won't be a Fallout Day broadcast this year, but the company will celebrate its 30th anniversary with the franchise in 2027 with a live event. Probably will have a big announcement lined up then. If they don't, they're utterly stupid. Okay. They confirmed that Obsidian was working on a Fallout project, which we talked about last week, that Obsidian had been directed to either slow or stop production on an avowed sequel. Undetermined right now which it is, if that's still on or if it has been canceled, and they're going to be working on a Fallout project directly. Okay, and then speaking to Bloomberg, Todd Howard said he could not be more excited to work with Obsidian. He prefers not to speak about projects too soon, but that fans should have their expectations set appropriately. In other words, they're not going to discuss dates about when any of this stuff is going to release, at least not yet. He says the note closes, the note from Bethesda, confirming that Elder Scrolls 6 is the studio's current focus while Fallout 5 remains in pre-production. And that's what they say here. Elder Scrolls 6 is still our primary focus, with the majority of our team working on the next chapter of the franchise. Okay, so our big takeaways from this are several. First of all, it's kind of confirmation of what the new CEO of Xbox, Asha Sharma, stated a couple weeks ago or months ago, that she wanted to make she wanted to put more resources towards what she considers to be Xbox's flagship franchises. She wants to put more resources and focus into getting games in these franchises done because she considers them the money makers for Xbox. She's probably not wrong about that. And at the time it was just words. Now we're starting to see some of those words slowly translating into action. In Bethesda's case, under Xbox, that's obviously going to translate to, I think, in a big way, the Elder Scrolls and Fallout, and then to a slightly lesser extent, Doom and maybe Wolfenstein. They're going to start putting more focus, more energy on this. It does mean that other projects are probably going to fall by the wayside, but they're going to be putting more and more focus on trying to get these games done. Now, as far as the Obsidian game, I think I went over this before where I said that I think that Obsidian made Fallout New Vegas in about 18 months, if I can remember correctly. And if that's the case, it's feasible that they could do that again. You know, if Bethesda just handed Obsidian the latest iteration of the Creation engine, which is Creation 3 now, you know, or God forbid, Unreal 5, handed that over to them and said, look, go nuts. It's possible, theoretically, that they could produce something in less than 2 years and get it to market. It seems unlikely that the dev cycle of AAA games being in a 4 to 6 year window on average, that it's going to happen that fast. I don't know if Obsidian has 4 to 6 years to produce something before the Xbox higher-ups lose patience with them, assuming Sharma is still in charge of 4 to 6 years and Xbox is still a viable brand anyway. So, and this touches on nothing to say that the people who made Obsidian, aren't necessarily still there. Some will argue that a lot of the same people are still there. And the counter to that argument would be, well, yeah, but those same people were making Outer Worlds 2 and Avowed, which some people liked, but they were not big commercial successes. They didn't ever have the same cultural cachet as Fallout New Vegas did. So this is going to be very much a wait and see situation. All right, now I'm going to skip over here and look at the next article, and this is from Insider Gaming, also from Friday. We're going to talk about the remasters, and they say that they confirm Fallout 3 and Fallout New Vegas remasters are in development. This has been rumored for a long time. People have been on again, off again about this is happening. Bethesda's been very coy with it, but I think they might have got their hands slapped by the Xbox president and said, no, start telling people what's going on. We need to build up some hype over our franchise. And now they said, okay, they've confirmed they're in active development. And in the post, it said, we know players want to revisit previous experiences. We're not announcing any dates, but we've been working on both of these. Now, the question is, are these coming straight from Bethesda? Or are they going to do basically what they did with the Oblivion 4 remaster, where they handed over to Virtuous, and Virtuous did, I think, kind of the yeoman's work to get it going with Bethesda's oversight. None of that information is out. We have no release window. We don't know who's actually doing the work on these. They just confirmed that these are happening. Now, granted, when they say we confirm these in development, they might have just written the names of the games with the word remaster behind them on a whiteboard and said, okay, we've started. There's no way to know. And like I said, there's no release window for this. They kept the Oblivion remaster a pretty decent secret, but like I said, I think they wanted to get ahead of it, and they wanted to get people talking about the franchise again. My personal opinion, I've said it before, I'll say it again. Fallout is my favorite franchise in all of gaming. I love these games. Fallout 3 and New Vegas, I'm hoping that if they are remastering them, I mean, I don't want them to use Unreal 5. That's what they used for Oblivion's remaster, and it's just got, a lot of the same problems that other Unreal games have. Granted, the Creation Engine, at least the Creation 1 engine, which was what they used for Skyrim and Fallout 4, and the Creation 2 engine, which is what they used for Starfield, are not that stable either. They're not that great. They're loaded with bugs. And just as a note, they used Gamebryo originally for Fallout 3 and New Vegas. That was kind of the parent predecessor for Creation. They forked off of that to make the Creation Engine. The Creation Engine 3 is mentioned February of this year. It's supposedly much more stable and workable. And that's what I think Elder Scrolls 6 has, in theory, shifted to using. So I don't know if how these games are going to be run. I hope that they're just not going to put a graphical veneer over it and call it a day. With Oblivion, they did change some things. And frankly, to me, the absolute weakest parts of Fallout 3 and Fallout New Vegas both were the combat and the interface. I know people, it's almost blasphemy to speak ill of Fallout New Vegas. And while I agree the story and the role-playing are absolutely amazing, it's head and shoulders above any other game in the franchise, you can't argue with the fact that the interface is shit. It's a role-playing game that doesn't have dedicated windows to a map, a quest journal, or an inventory. Okay, future Jonathan here. I know the game has dedicated windows for those functions. I meant to say it doesn't have dedicated hotkeys. Yes, you can get to them through your Pip-Boy, but you can't hotkey them. That's almost a felony in a RPG. The combat is terrible. Most of your foes just stand in the open to be shot at. So those are the weakest parts of the game that really could use some overhauling. Now, I know with Oblivion, they did fix some quality of life features like the interface and change some things around. I would love to see them incorporate more of the, say, Fallout 4 style of combat, where human mobs acted intelligently. Deathclaws would duck and weave to try and avoid being shot. Mud crabs would cover their vulnerable parts with their claws. I said mud crabs, didn't I? God, I'm getting my games confused. Mirelurks would cover their faces with their claws. I'd like to see them import some of that intelligent behavior. And I mean, if that were the case, but they kept the role playing and the story playing, New Vegas could be, literally insurmountable as a role playing game. Okay, last, I'm going to cut over this Eurogamer article also from Friday. Bethesda reassures fans the Elder Scrolls 6 is on the way following the Xbox cuts, and that it's, quote, loving how it looks, and, quote, we're playing it every day. We're where we plan to be. Well, son, then your plan was terrible if this is where you plan to be now. Jesus. As far as, it's on the way, the meme. It's hard to believe anything they say about this game because, like I said, it's been 15 years since we saw the last one. any competent studio should have produced a next game in the series by now. And the fact that they haven't, there is literally no way it's going to live up to its hype. There's no way it's going to live up to its expectations. And the fact that people have been kept waiting so long. Now, this kind of what alludes back to what I said at the very opening of this video, where I said we got what we want. People have been wanting more Elder Scrolls. We've been wanting more Fallout. We've been bitching about it, justifiably bitching about it, that the fact that they haven't gotten to them. Now they're actually doing it, and the uncertainty is starting to flood in as to whether or not it's going to be worthwhile or a quality product. You know, the question is we're going to get it faster now, but is it going to be worth the wait? And I'm still skeptical. I'm still skeptical with Fallout games too. And again, I love this franchise, and I would love to see more quality products in this line delivered. And I won't lie. When I heard this news, I was about all these releases from Bethesda and everything coming. I was slightly excited, but I have to tell myself it's all talk until we see products, until we start seeing trailers, until we start having release windows, until we start getting Q&A sessions where they're demoing the game. Until we start getting any of that, I mean, it's all talk. Here's the question I would ask everybody down below: do you expect to see any trailers or any information from this, say, at the Game Awards show in December? That's about 5 months out. Do you expect to see anything from Bethesda on any game that they've talked about? I'm saying no, and I think the answer is going to be no, because right now, again, it is still all talk. All right, that's all I have to say about Bethesda for now. Like I said just a moment ago, let me know what you think down below. When do you think we're actually going to see a tangible product for any of these games? When are we going to see a trailer or a dev diary or any kind of demo? I'm guessing it won't be this calendar year, and maybe not till a year from now, maybe next summer. But let me know what you think. And if you're enjoying this content, please consider subscribing to the channel. Drop a like on the video. I welcome all that in addition to your comments. Okay, we're going to talk about some other news of the week, so let's get into that. Now let's cut over to some Assassin's Creed Black Flag Resynched news. And this IGN article, also from Friday the 17th, says that the New Game Plus has been confirmed as Ubisoft marks 3 million copies sold. The update puts the sales up 1 million copies 1 week after announcing it had managed to reach 2 million copies sold in 24 hours. Now, of course, Ubisoft being Ubisoft, they couldn't manage to do this without laying off a bunch of people, pissing off their unions, but that's a whole nother issue. Now, I want you to note the linguistic precision they used here when they said copies sold. Previously, and even IGN has to admit this, and normally they're very flattering of these big companies. That's probably the safest YouTube way I can say that. As mentioned in IGN's previous coverage, Ubisoft has typically only shared player numbers, not sales, when a new game arrives. Yet, and you can see here in their current tweet that they say 3 million copies sold. They're being very specific, as opposed to this old tweet right here, which came out about 2 days after AC Shadows dropped, where they say players, not copies sold. Always pay attention to what these big companies are telling you, because they're always full of shit and they're always trying to trick you. The precision is not an accident. They know what they're saying. Anyway, meanwhile, Ubisoft celebrated its milestone by confirming a new Game Plus mode on the way, and they're doing post-launch support, including QoL updates, bug fixes, and so on. So they're actively supporting the game, which is fine. I know a lot of people have played this and enjoyed it. At $60 a pop, minus storefront fees, they probably cleared roughly $120 to $130 million. The development budget on this was unknown, but I have to think they're getting into profitability territory. Remasters and remakes usually don't cost as much as the original game. Again, this being Ubisoft, who the hell knows? They still could be in the red on this. But in any event, that's where they are. They're at 3 million copies sold. Well, not everything is great in the Black Flag world, as this article from Eurogamer from Monday the 13th shows. Despite having an offline mode, Assassin's Creed Black Flag Resynched was unplayable when Ubisoft Connect went down. And they said over the weekend, the DRM and social-related layer of the game, Ubisoft Connect, suffered an outage, knocking the game offline on PC. Okay? Upon purchasing a Ubisoft game, a one-time internet connection is required to authenticate the copy done through Ubisoft Connect. This should, in theory, let you play offline until the game is reinstalled. Unfortunately, the offline mode is known to be spotty. This was demonstrated over the weekend when its servers went offline. The outage appears to have lasted an hour, but the problem is it took offline capability with it. And this is why I have a problem with so much DRM. And I think you should too, because we're already entering an era, with everything going on with Sony lately, where they're literally telling you you will own nothing and like it. And this is yet another example of how easy it is for them to take your game away. Just turn off the Switch, turn off the offline connect. You can't play the game. And I don't like it. You shouldn't like it either. But this is the reality, and these big companies are going to keep doing this as long as we keep rewarding them. And since we're talking about Assassin's Creed, we got one more item, and that is this from Game Rant from Thursday the 16th. Assassin's Creed Hexe release date leak plus more brand new details. Take all of this with a grain of salt, but apparently it has been released for June of 2027, with the known leaker dropping a handful of new details alongside this date. Very little is known about this game other than it's taking place in Germany during witch hunt trials, that they had magic planned, that some of that's been dropped. A lot still TBD, but like I said, not a lot is known about this game. People are hoping for more information. And again, kind of back to what I was saying about with Bethesda, we want to see some demos. We want to see some gameplay. And if it is scheduled for next year, you would expect in the next 6 months we would start to see something. And here's kind of a summary of the information that was leaked. The rest of the article just goes through this in more detail. They're saying next year, a target window for PC and major consoles, typical lineup of price, pre-order bonus. Nuremberg and Würzburg are connected. Apparently the game is going to take place partly in Würzburg. I lived there for a couple years. It's a nice town. I liked it. Large scale yet linear, improved parkour based on the classic games. Better graphics than AC Shadows using that game's weather tech. Magic still removed. AC Syndicate's Fear System from Jack the Ripper DLC makes a comeback. I haven't played AC Syndicate, so I'm unfamiliar with that. I'm assuming the people that have know what that is. So anyway, that's just out there now. That's what they're talking about for the next Assassin's Creed game. If they were to put it out next year, I have to admit that's regardless of whether people think these games were quality, good, worth playing, not worth playing. They will have put out 2 games in the span of about 27 months. 2 new games, not counting Resynched as it's a remaster, but 2 new games in the span of 27 months. So maybe Ubisoft is starting to figure their shit out. Well, we haven't talked about what a dumpster fire Marathon and Bungie are for a while, so why not? This GameSpot article from Friday the 17th says the game director leaves at a tumultuous time. That is the understatement of the week. Marathon game director Joe Ziegler has announced he's leaving Bungie for a new job. And note that Del Chafee III, who was previously the assistant game director, will take over, and so on and so forth. Ziegler is said to be heading to somewhere else and will announce his new job soon. It's hard not to read that as abandoning a sinking ship, because we'll go ahead and skip over and look, and there's Marathon, and that's where we are. 5,000-6,000 players. If we go to the 3-month, they had their season 1 or season 2 and their free week, and they are now clocking in 5, 6, 7, 6, lower than even before then. How much longer Bungie is just going to pretend that everything is okay and do the burning house on fire meme and says this is fine. But I think this is all they have. They don't have any games in the pipeline. They're canceling Destiny 2. They're not going to support that anymore. So what are they going to do? They've staked their money and their reputation and their soul and their dignity on this game. They're going to ride it into the scene of the crash. They're going to ride it all the way in. Their other Destiny, no pun intended, their other course of action is they're going to end up becoming support studio for other studios, or get shut down entirely, I think, at this point, because it's just they're still hemorrhaging players. This isn't enough to keep a live service game going. It's just not. They're not going to have enough people spending money on it, and even with Bungie being decimated by the cuts, there's still going to be a huge money drain. So I think that's unfortunate. I have not said to this point that I thought Marathon was for sure doomed, but I don't know how you can escape that conclusion anymore. Speaking of studios that might be in trouble, this Insider Gaming article from Monday the 13th says newly independent Compulsion Games is looking for collaboration opportunities. They've only been independent again for a week, but it's already moving forward with how it wants to work on new games. Just for the record, Compulsion Games was one of the studios that Xbox divested itself from. Them and I think Double Fine, the people who make Psychonauts, bought themselves out to go independent again. Ninja Theory, who made Hellblade, and Undead Labs are being sold off. We don't know to whom yet. And I think Arcane's fate is uncertain. So those five studios, Compulsion Games was one of them. They said in a post on social media, the Montreal-based studio announced it is, quote, expanding opportunities to collaborate with studios across games and the entertainment industry. As part of a call for collaboration is inviting potential partners to leverage the talent and creativity, yakety yak, yak, yak. Okay, that's all the rest of that's corporatism speak. So this studio that made games like South of Midnight and We Happy Few, they're independent again. I mean, just going to say it plainly, they're already whoring themselves out to other companies to try and survive. This story might not be over. They're sitting around going, we got to bring in some income, so we're going to offer ourselves up basically as a work for hire or support studio to somebody else doing something. We're looking for collaboration because they don't have any of their own games going, and they've got to keep the lights on. Otherwise, say it all with me.
Our universe is doomed! Doomed!
Anyway, we'll see what happens to them. Now, this is just the sketchiest of clickbaits. This Game Rant article from Thursday the 16th. New Saber exec reportedly gives statement on Knights of the Old Republic remake. He didn't really, but that's beside the point. It said, recently Saber Interactive appointed Steve Allison as its chief business officer, which has caused some concerns among its fan bases because he does not have a good track record when it comes to monetization. However, a supposed statement from him, unverified, but still making the rounds online, tackles that criticism while also naming the Knights of the Old Republic remake. And this was the statement from his LinkedIn. It's very difficult to read, but I'm just going to read the pertinent part here. He says, my job isn't to squeeze money from Saber's products through tactics like that. This is in response to criticism about his monetization history. We're preparing to do more self-publishing, and I'm here to organize the group in preparation of the lineup forming for 2028, like when I came to Telltale in 2010, which was also a no microtransactions company. The lineup for forming for 2028 that includes Space Marine, Wick, hopefully KOTOR remake, and a few unannounced titles. And that's the extent of this. This is how these rumors get started. Nobody has heard jack about Knights of the Old Republic remake. Would it be great? Could be. Are we going to see it? I ain't holding my breath, and neither should you. So just remember, this is how, and I've seen this news article on multiple sites. This is how these things get started. An innocent comment, possibly taken way the hell out of context. It didn't really tell us anything. So, there we are. More media spin. All right, I'm going to leave this one here for the week. There were a few other things that happened, but I covered the things I thought were interesting. Hopefully you found them interesting too. If you did, I appreciate it. If you like the video, leave a like on it. Drop a comment down below. Let me know what you think about Bethesda's moves. Hit that bell so you're notified the next time a news video comes up. And if you think I've earned your subscription, I humbly thank you in advance for that. Otherwise, we're going to carry on. This industry just keeps getting crazier by the week, and we'll always have something to talk about here on QuickBird Gaming. So thank you very much for tuning in. I will be back next week with more QuickBird news. Until then, you all go out there, live your best lives, and y'all stay gaming.